They say family cuts deepest, but no one tells you how that blade feels until it's halfway through your spine. My name is Jason, I'm 37 from a mid-sized town in Illinois, and look, I'm not exactly the calmest guy around. I've been called hot-headed since middle school. And from wherever you're hearing this you might want to lean in. Have you ever realized too late that you were only valued as free labor in your own family? So here's the thing. A couple of weeks ago my sister Paige was getting ready for her dream wedding. Big deal, 250 guests, fancy barn venue, the works. You'd think I'd be happy, right? But nah, she hit me with a phone call out of nowhere that smacked me straight across the face. Jason, she goes, all sweet and dripping, honey, you'll be taking care of the kids, okay? Mine, the guests, everyone's. It's a huge help. I laughed. Like legit laughed. Because she wasn't kidding, she wanted me, her brother, to show up to her wedding and basically play unpaid babysitter for a horde of sugar-crazed kids while everyone else partied. It felt like being demoted to the family's clown. I told her, no chance, Paige. Hire a professional. I'm not some daycare center. That's when she turned, like flipped her switch. I swear I could hear the wedding bells turning to sirens. She started screaming about how I owed her, that I should bring an expensive gift anyway, that she'd graciously let me attend if I just shut up and did what she asked. Like hell. So I hung up on her. Blocked her even. You know how family sometimes pokes and prods at your weakest spots? Well, Paige went nuclear. A day later she was texting mutual relatives that I was ruining her happiness, and selfish, and cold-hearted. Cold-hearted? Sure. I could live with that. Because if someone tries to treat you like their personal tool, you gotta show them you still have teeth. So I cooked up something she never saw coming, a surprise that would rip her entitled fairytale veil right off in front of everyone. And trust me, I was going to love every second of it. Wait till you see how I set the match to her perfect day. They say you can measure a person's respect for you by how they treat you when they want something. Paige. She treated me like a damn butler in cheap clothes. After I hung up on her, my phone exploded. Cousins, aunts, even my mom chiming in with that usual guilt routine. Jason, it's just a couple hours. Jason, don't be dramatic. Jason, family helps family. Yeah, right. Family uses family, more like it. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying her tone. The audacity. Like I was some hired hand born to scrub her shoes. The more I thought about it, the hotter I burned. I wanted to burn her whole narrative down, this spoiled, self-appointed princess act. So I got an idea. Not a nice one, I'll admit, but after being called heartless, I figured, why not live up to it? She wanted a wedding gift? Fine. She wanted childcare? Sure. But I'd send it on my terms. I reached out to a buddy of mine, Nate, a guy who runs these local theater programs for kids. He was looking for volunteers for a clown and balloon animal workshop. Totally legit, but chaos in a box. About 15 kids from his group were itching for a field trip to a big event where they could practice their clown makeup, balloons, and puppet skills. I asked Nate if his kids wanted to show up at Paige's wedding. As guests. I'd even pay their transportation and lunch. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I told him, dead serious. If Paige wanted me to wrangle kids, then she'd get more than she ever dreamed of. A living, breathing hurricane of rowdy, sugar-hyped mini-performers, decked out in squeaky shoes, clown paint, juggling pins, and squealing horns. I sent a carefully worded RSVP to Paige's wedding planner, saying, I will not be attending personally but have arranged a delightful surprise to assist with child entertainment. It was perfect. A day later, Paige left me a voicemail that practically melted my speaker. Jason, what the hell is wrong with you? You're ruining everything. I listened to it on repeat, smiling. She still didn't get it, but she would. Because her big day was about to become the biggest circus the county had ever seen. Literally. Paige thought she was the ringmaster of her perfect little wedding, but she was about to meet a real circus. The morning of her big day, I sat in my pickup, sipping a stale gas station coffee, watching the sun claw its way over the hayfields. I could picture her right then, fake smiling at her bridesmaids, barking orders, telling everyone how magical it all was. I'd given Nate's kids a ride myself to the venue. As they tumbled out of the van, clown noses squeaking, rainbow wigs bobbing, all giddy with excitement, I swear I nearly choked on my coffee from laughing. Paige wanted a kid's handler? She was getting the most chaotic kiddie crew this side of a carnival. They went marching into that rustic barn with their props and face paint, heads held high like soldiers on a mission. The wedding coordinator looked ready to faint. Part of me for half a second felt bad. Maybe I was going too far. Maybe I should have let it go. Then I remembered Paige screaming in my ear about how she owned me, how I owed her my time, my energy, my gifts, my soul. Nah. Let the clown show begin. From what I heard later, the kids stole the spotlight the second they arrived. They ran circles around the bridesmaids, made balloon animals for the best man, tried to feed cake to random guests, and played their recorders off-key at full blast. Paige had an absolute meltdown. She called me no less than 15 times that afternoon, each voicemail angrier than the last. Jason, how dare you? Jason, you ruined everything. Jason, I will never forgive you. By the fourth one, I just stopped listening. I drove to a diner on the edge of town, ordered the cheapest burger on the menu, and watched the afternoon sun drop behind the grain silos while her wedding crumbled in a swirl of shrieking kids and confetti. For the first time in years, I felt free. I didn't belong in her little hierarchy of givers and takers. I'd ripped myself out of it. But Paige wasn't going to let this slide. I knew her. And what she planned next? Well, that was the part one didn't see coming. I should have known Paige wouldn't just lick her wounds and move on. That woman has a vindictive streak longer than the Mississippi. 2 days after the wedding fiasco, she showed up at my front door, still in the fancy white dress, dirt stains all down the hem, mascara streaked like a raccoon. And hell, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked like the ghost of a bridezilla. She barged right in, didn't even ask, and stood there breathing like she'd run a marathon. You think you're funny? She spat, voice shaking. You think you can humiliate me like that and get away with it? I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, trying not to grin. Worked pretty well, didn't it? Her eyes went wide. You ruined everything. The guests left early, the caterer refused to stay, the photographer packed up. Jason, I will never live this down. I shrugged. Maybe next time, don't treat me like free help. She was silent for a second, hands balled into fists, tears threatening. Then she launched into a new demand, like she couldn't help herself. You owe me, she hissed. That gift you didn't bring? You're going to make up for it. I expect at least $500. Plus you're babysitting my kids next weekend. That's the price of your little joke. I almost laughed in her face. Paige, you really don't get it. I'm done playing your puppet. Done. She screamed, full volume, banshee-level rage, and kicked my coffee table hard enough to rattle my cups. That's when I realized something. Paige wasn't just selfish, she was desperate. That wedding was supposed to be her crowning moment, her big social win. And I'd shattered it. She needed me to fix her pride, to play along, to apologize. I wasn't going to do any of that. Instead, I calmly opened the door, pointed outside, and said, "Get out." She glared at me, breathing like a bull ready to charge, but finally she stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard the windows shook. As the dust settled, a grin slipped across my face. No more strings. No more guilt. But somehow, deep down, I knew Paige wasn't finished, and her next move would test every ounce of my resolve. Turns out, I was right, Paige had one last swing in her. And it hit harder than I ever expected. 3 days after I'd booted her out of my house, I got a letter. An actual letter, on her wedding stationery no less. The handwriting was shaky, like she tried to stay calm but couldn't. Jason, since you have chosen to sabotage my wedding and refuse reasonable family support, I am forced to pursue reimbursement. You will be responsible for compensating me for the damages and distress you caused. I had to read it twice just to process it. Paige was threatening to sue me. Over her wedding meltdown. I dropped the letter on the table and laughed so loud I startled myself. It was ridiculous. Utterly, spectacularly ridiculous. But knowing Paige, she might actually find a lawyer crazy enough to file it. Part of me wanted to let it ride. Go to court, stand before a judge, and tell them how she tried to enslave me as free childcare. But another part, the tired, older brother part, just couldn't stomach more drama. So I took a breath, sat down, and wrote her back. Come. Final. Unshakable. Paige, if you pursue this nonsense, I will have no choice but to countersue for emotional harassment and attempted exploitation. I have texts and voicemails saved, and I will not hesitate to share them publicly if you push me. Let this be the last word between us. Jason. I mailed it, then blocked her number for good. No more phone calls. No more poison-laced guilt trips. I half expected her to show up pounding on my door again, but she didn't. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. Silence. It was like a knot in my gut finally untied itself. Still, there was this tiny itch at the back of my mind, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Paige was quiet, yes, but she'd never been the type to leave a war unfinished. And if she came at me one more time, I'd be ready. After all, I thought as I poured myself a whiskey that night, even family needs to learn you can't leash a wolf forever. 2 months passed. Peaceful months, to be honest. I'd started sleeping better, Even picked up a weekend gig fixing up vintage motorcycles just to keep my mind busy. But you know how sometimes when life finally goes quiet, you can almost hear the storm sneaking up behind you? Paige came back around with one more master plan, or what she thought was a master plan anyway. It was a Saturday morning when I saw her again, unannounced, walking up my driveway like she still owned the world. But this time she wasn't alone. She had her husband trailing behind her, carrying a cardboard box. And her face, God, her face, she was wearing that smug little smirk that used to make me flinch when we were kids. "Jason," she sang out too cheerful. "We need to talk." I stepped outside, arms crossed. "About what?" She motioned to the box. "Since you're so committed to cutting yourself off from the family, I figured you'd want your share. Dad's old tools, Mom's recipe books, the rest of your childhood junk. We don't want it cluttering our new life." She plopped the box right at my feet, like I was a stray dog she'd decided to toss scraps at. "Thanks," I said, voice flat. I wasn't giving her any more fuel. But Paige wasn't done. "Oh," she added with a syrupy grin, "you might want to know we're taking over Dad's place, the family house. We're remodeling. You know, since you clearly don't deserve it." There it was. The real dagger. She'd claimed Dad's house behind my back, convinced Mom to sign over her share, and now she wanted me to stand there like some forgotten little brother while she lorded it over me. Something cold settled in my chest. "Enjoy it," I told her, keeping my voice steady. She blinked, almost disappointed I didn't break. "That's all?" I shrugged. "That's all." Paige stared at me, looking for weakness. She found none. Eventually she gave up, waved her husband to follow her, and stomped off down the drive. I watched them go, then nudged open the cardboard box. It was a time capsule of my old life. My baseball glove, a tarnished participation trophy, Dad's battered socket set. I took a deep breath, picked it up, and carried it inside. If Paige thought she'd crushed me, she was dead wrong. Because a man with nothing left to lose is a man who can finally build something new. The house was quiet that night, too quiet. I sat on the couch with that dusty cardboard box at my feet, picking through bits of my childhood. Dad's wrench set still smelled faintly of motor oil and sweat. Mom's recipes, scribbled in her looping pen, reminded me of Sunday stews she'd made when life was simpler, before Paige turned every family moment into a power game. Part of me ached to hold on to those memories. Another part knew I had to let them die so I could breathe. But the final straw? It was a folded note, crammed in the corner of the box. Paige's handwriting again. "If you change your mind about the wedding disaster, you know where to find me. Otherwise, stay gone." Felt like a dare. Like she still believed she could yank me back into her orbit. That night I couldn't sleep, mind spinning. I kept picturing her tearing up Dad's house, gutting the walls, stripping out every inch of history to make it hers. It felt like a slap to everything Dad worked for, everything he taught me. Then it hit me. If she wanted to erase the past, fine. But she wasn't going to rewrite my part of it. So the next morning I loaded Dad's tools into my truck. I drove over to the family house, not to fight but to claim one last piece of him. There was a tiny brass nameplate on Dad's workbench. Nothing valuable to most folks, but to me, it was worth the world. I walked right past Paige's new contractor, ignored her gawking face, and pried that nameplate off with my screwdriver. She came storming out in a silk robe, hair in curlers, shrieking, "Jason, what the hell are you doing here?" I pocketed the nameplate. "Taking what belongs to me. That's trespassing," she screamed. I looked her dead in the eye. "Call the cops. I dare you." She didn't. I turned and left, feeling a weird sense of calm. That brass nameplate felt heavier than gold in my pocket. I guess I was done playing the villain in her fairy tale. Sometimes you don't burn bridges. Sometimes you just quietly walk across them one last time and never look back. I kept that nameplate in my palm the entire ride home, running my thumb across the engraved letters. James Taylor, Master Mechanic. Dad had been proud of that title. It was the only piece of him I needed to keep. When I got back, I set the nameplate on my shelf, next to the old socket wrench, and felt like I'd finally reclaimed something Paige could never taint. Days turned into weeks, and Paige stayed silent after my final raid on Dad's workbench. I guess she realized she'd pushed too far, or maybe she finally accepted she couldn't bully me anymore. Either way, she kept her distance. I didn't hear a word about lawsuits, didn't see her face at my door, nothing. For the first time in years, I actually felt steady. I started fixing up bikes again with a buddy, got back into Sunday softball, and even took my niece out for ice cream, on my own terms. No babysitting orders, no guilt trips just because I wanted to. Word got around about Paige's wedding disaster though. Apparently those clown kids went viral. A guest had filmed them trying to feed cake to the DJ and posted it online. The video racked up thousands of views, everyone laughing, Paige red-faced in the background. I didn't share it. I didn't have to. Karma has a sense of humor. Paige got the social embarrassment she'd earned and I got my freedom back. Clean. Simple. Final. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like fire and brimstone. Sometimes it looks like walking away, refusing to play the same rigged game, and letting life do the punishing for you. Dad's nameplate sits on my shelf, a reminder of who I came from and who I'm choosing to be. And every time I see it, I think of Paige somewhere out there trying to spin her web, wondering why her favorite pawn doesn't dance to her strings anymore. I smile. Because I took back my story. And this time no one's writing the ending but me.